The massive trade station floated in the darkness between stars like a metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports every day. Inside the station's main hall, creatures of all shapes and sizes conducted business. Some walked on four legs, others slithered, and a few floated in the air using anti-gravity belts. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective stood near the central information hub. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights as he read an urgent message on his communication device. His large black eyes widened with each word he read. "Attention all station personnel," Veltar announced through the public address system. "We have received word that a human battlecruiser is approaching our sector. The ship is responding to recent piracy attacks against Earth merchant vessels." A ripple of laughter spread through the crowded hall. Several alien traders stopped their conversations to listen. Most of them had heard of humans before, but few took them seriously. Fleet Admiral Krexhai of the Hegemony Military Forces was dining in the station's exclusive officers' club when he heard the announcement. The tall, gray-skinned warrior put down his drink and shook his head in amusement. "One ship?" Krexhai said to his fellow officers. "The humans are sending one ship to deal with the Crimson Nebula pirates? Those pirates have been raiding ships for 20 years. The humans must be desperate," replied Captain Zorthak, a reptilian officer with scales that changed color when he was excited. "Their technology is so far behind ours. They only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago." Krexhai stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. "Let them come. Our defense grid could destroy a dozen of their primitive vessels without breaking a sweat." In another part of the station, a group of alien scientists gathered around a holographic display showing human technology. Dr. Cleavon, a insect-like creature with 6 arms, pointed at images of human ships. "Look at their designs, Doctor," Cleavon said. "So crude and simple. They still use physical projectile weapons instead of energy beams. Their ships are made of basic metal alloys instead of quantum-bonded materials." "It makes sense," added Dr. Nimara, whose species looked like walking trees. "Humans are soft-skinned creatures with no natural armor or claws. They lack the physical strength of most galactic species. They live only about 80 years, which is barely enough time to learn basic technology." The group nodded in agreement. According to their databases, humans were one of the most primitive species to achieve space travel in recent history. Their home world was a violent place where they spent most of their time fighting each other instead of advancing their civilization. "I heard their military tactics are quite simple too," Dr. Cleavon continued. "They use brute force instead of elegant strategy. Very predictable." What none of these aliens knew was that humans had been busy for the past 50 years. After making contact with galactic civilization, Earth's governments had started a secret project. They captured alien technology whenever possible and studied it carefully. Human engineers took apart every piece of alien equipment they could find. But humans didn't just copy what they found, they improved it. Human scientists looked at alien energy shields and made them stronger. They examined alien weapons and made them more deadly. They studied alien ship designs and built vessels that were faster and tougher. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they still used physical weapons. What they didn't understand was that humans had perfected physical weapons to a level the galaxy had never seen. Back in the officers' club, more military leaders had joined Admiral Krexhai's table. They were discussing the human threat with the casual attitude of adults talking about children playing with toys. "I fought against the Crimson Nebula pirates myself last year," said General Vortak, a massive creature covered in natural armor plates. "They destroyed 3 of our cruisers before we drove them off. If the humans think they can handle them with one ship, they're going to learn a hard lesson." "Perhaps it's for the best," Krexhai said thoughtfully. "The humans need to understand their place in the galaxy. They've been too independent since making contact. They refuse to follow galactic law properly. They won't accept our guidance on how primitive species should behave." The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Red lights flashed throughout the station as the communication system crackled to life. "All vessels in the sector, this is long-range scanning station Delta 7. We're detecting an approaching ship signature. It's massive and moving fast." Admiral Krexhai rushed to the nearest tactical display. The screen showed a single dot moving through space toward their location. The computer was having trouble getting accurate readings on the approaching vessel. "How big is it?" Krexhai asked the scanning officer. "Sir, the readings don't make sense. The ship appears to be over 2 kilometers long, but that's impossible for a human vessel. Their largest ships are supposed to be cargo freighters, less than 500 meters long." Suddenly, all the communication channels in the sector received the same transmission. The voice that came through was calm and professional, but there was something in its tone that made every alien in the station feel uncomfortable. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Retribution. You have exactly 24 hours to surrender all stolen Earth cargo and personnel to my custody. This includes all human prisoners currently held by pirate forces in this sector. This is your only warning. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the station in complete silence. Admiral Krexhai stared at the tactical display. The approaching ship was still hours away, but something about the message bothered him. The human captain hadn't asked for negotiations. She hadn't mentioned galactic law or diplomatic immunity. She had simply given an order and set a deadline. "Get me a full tactical analysis of that ship," Krexhai ordered his staff. "I want to know everything about human military capabilities." As his officers rushed to carry out his commands, the admiral couldn't shake a growing feeling of unease. For the first time in his long military career, he wondered if the hegemony had made a serious mistake in underestimating the humans. The station's emergency sirens continued to wail as every ship in the sector prepared for what was coming. None of them realized they were about to witness the first demonstration of what humanity had become in the 50 years since joining galactic civilization. The countdown had begun. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, looking out at the stars through the main viewing screen. The bridge was larger than most alien ships entirely. Dozens of crew members worked at their stations, their hands moving quickly over control panels that glowed with soft blue light. "Status report," Captain Chen said without turning around. Commander Rodriguez, her second in command, approached with a data tablet. "We'll reach the target sector in 18 hours, Captain. All weapon systems are charged and ready. The crew is prepared for combat operations." Chen finally turned to face him. She was a tall woman, with graying hair and scars on her left cheek from an old battle. Her eyes held a cold anger that her crew had learned to recognize and respect. "What about our intelligence on the enemy forces?" she asked. "The pirates have been operating from the asteroid field for 3 months, Rodriguez replied. "They're using captured alien warships and have at least 40 vessels of various sizes. The local defense forces have been trying to remove them but haven't succeeded." Chen nodded slowly. "And Admiral Krexhai's fleet? 47 ships total, heavy cruisers, destroyers, and fighter squadrons. They're positioning themselves to intercept us before we reach the asteroid field." The bridge fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the ship's systems. Every person there knew what those numbers meant. The UES Retribution would be facing nearly 90 enemy ships alone. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "The crew is asking about the mission details. Should I tell them about the odds?" Chen walked to her command chair and sat down. "Tell them the truth, Lieutenant. Tell them we're going to face the largest pirate fleet in the sector, plus a hegemony battle group. Tell them we're outnumbered nearly 90 to 1. She paused and looked around the bridge at her crew. "Then tell them why we're here." Rodriguez activated the ship-wide communication system. Chen's voice carried to every corner of the massive vessel. 3 months ago, the colony ship New Horizon was carrying 2,500 civilians to establish a new settlement on Kepler Prime. Among them were families, children, scientists, and teachers, people who wanted to build a better life on a new world. The ship remained quiet as her words reached the 3,000 crew members aboard. The Crimson Nebula pirates attacked New Horizon when it was only 2 days from its destination. They killed 2,000 innocent people. They took 500 survivors as slaves to sell in alien black markets. Among the dead was my daughter Emma and her family. Chen's voice remained steady, but everyone could hear the pain beneath her professional tone. The galactic authorities did nothing. They said New Horizon was in unprotected space. They said human lives were not their responsibility. They said we should have known better than to travel without proper escorts. She stood up from her chair and moved to the center of the bridge. Today we're going to show them what happens when you attack our people. Today we're going to demonstrate that human lives are worth fighting for. And today we're going to prove that Earth has never lost a war because we never give up. The ship's internal communication system carried the sound of 3,000 voices cheering. Meanwhile, in the Kepler asteroid field, Admiral Krexhai was organizing his forces for battle. His flagship, the massive cruiser Dominance, floated among the largest asteroids. Around him, 46 other ships took their positions according to his battle plan. The humans will have to come through the asteroid field to reach the pirates, Krexhai explained to his captains during a holographic conference. The terrain will limit their movement and prevent them from using their full speed advantage. Captain Zorthak nodded approvingly. A wise strategy, Admiral. The asteroids will also interfere with their targeting systems. Exactly, Krexhai continued. We'll position our heaviest ships at the entrance to the field. When the human vessel approaches, we'll force them to fight their way through our entire fleet. Even if their ship is larger than we expected, one vessel cannot defeat 47. On the other side of the asteroid field, the Crimson Nebula pirates were preparing their own defenses. Their leader, a vicious alien called Razor Claw, was not as confident as the hegemony forces. I've been studying human tactics, Razor Claw told his lieutenants. They don't fight like other species. They don't care about honor or showing mercy. When humans go to war, they go to win completely. One of his subordinates laughed. They're just another primitive species. How dangerous can they be? Razor Claw turned and struck the laughing pirate with his clawed hand, leaving deep cuts across the alien's face. Dangerous enough that no human colony has ever been successfully conquered. Dangerous enough that they've won every major conflict they've ever fought. Dangerous enough that I'm considering running instead of fighting. Back on the Retribution, Chief Engineer Martinez was conducting final checks on the ship's systems. The engine room was a marvel of human engineering, combining alien technology with human innovation in ways the galaxy had never seen. How are our adaptive shields? Martinez asked his team. Running at 100% efficiency, replied his assistant. The AI has analyzed every known alien weapon system and prepared countermeasures. If they use energy weapons, the shields will absorb and redirect the energy. If they use physical projectiles, the shields will deflect them. Martinez smiled grimly. And our weapons? All railgun batteries are loaded with depleted uranium rounds. Particle cannons are charged. Quantum torpedoes are armed and ready. The close defense laser grid is online. In the ship's fighter bay, Squadron Leader Kim was briefing her pilots. Unlike alien fighters, human interceptors were controlled by advanced AI systems that could react faster than any biological pilot. Remember, our drones don't need to worry about G-forces or life support, Kim told her team. They can pull maneuvers that would kill any living pilot. Use that advantage. As the Retribution continued its approach to the asteroid field, Captain Chen received a final intelligence report. The scope of the enemy forces was even larger than they had initially believed. Captain, Rodriguez said quietly, are you sure about this? We could call for reinforcements. The other battlecruisers could be here in a week. Chen shook her head. Those 500 people don't have a week. Every day they remain in pirate hands is another day of suffering. She looked at the tactical display showing the enemy positions. Besides, we don't need reinforcements. We're not here to fight a fair battle. We're here to end a threat. The hours passed slowly as both sides prepared for combat. The aliens positioned their ships according to centuries of traditional naval tactics. They arranged their forces in formations that had been used by their species for generations. The humans had different plans. As the UES Retribution approached the edge of the asteroid field, every alien sensor in the sector detected its arrival. The ship that appeared on their screens was unlike anything they had expected. It was a massive vessel, sleek and deadly, with weapon ports covering its hull like the spines of a predator. Admiral Krexhai opened a communication channel to the approaching human ship. Unknown human vessel. This is Admiral Krexhai of the Hegemony Defense Force. You are entering a restricted military zone. Turn around immediately or face the consequences. Captain Chen's response came back immediately. Admiral, you have 400 seconds to move your ships out of my way. After that, I cannot guarantee your survival. HFY stared at the communication display in disbelief. The human captain was not asking for safe passage. She was not requesting negotiations. She was giving him an ultimatum. For the first time in his military career, Admiral HFY wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Admiral HFY stared at the communication screen for several long seconds after Captain Chen's ultimatum. Around him, on the bridge of the Dominance, his officers waited for orders. The human ship was now visible on their main display, growing larger as it approached the asteroid field. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "the human vessel is not slowing down. It's heading straight for our formation." HFY shook his head in disbelief. "Open a channel to all ships. Prepare for combat. It seems the humans need to learn. Respect the hard way." To one. He activated the communication system to address the human captain one final time. "Captain Chen, you are vastly outnumbered. I have 47 warships under my command. Surrender now, and I promise you will be treated according to galactic law." The response from the UES Retribution came back immediately. Captain Chen's voice was calm and professional, but there was something in her tone that made every alien on HFY's bridge feel uncomfortable. "Admiral, you have 380 seconds remaining. I suggest you use them wisely." HFY's patience finally snapped. "All ships, open fire. Destroy that arrogant human vessel." The alien fleet unleashed everything they had. 47 ships fired simultaneously, filling space with plasma torpedoes, energy beams, and particle cannons. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. Bright explosions bloomed around the human battlecruiser as the weapons found their target. The alien crews cheered as their sensors showed multiple direct hits. No single ship could survive that much concentrated firepower. The battle was over before it had really begun, but as the energy from the explosions faded away, the UES Retribution emerged from the smoke completely undamaged. Its hull gleamed under the distant starlight, without even a scratch on its surface. "Impossible," whispered HFY's tactical officer. "Nothing could survive that attack." On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Chen watched the results of the alien barrage with mild interest. The ship's adaptive shielding had absorbed every incoming shot and converted the energy to power the ship's own systems. "Shields, holding at 100%, reported Lieutenant Commander Singh from the defense station. "The AI has analyzed their weapons and prepared countermeasures for future attacks." "Weapons status?" Chen asked. "All systems ready, Captain. Railgun batteries loaded and targeted. Particle cannons charged. Quantum torpedoes armed." Chen nodded slowly. "Fire." The human battlecruiser's response was unlike anything the aliens had ever experienced. Instead of elegant energy beams or graceful plasma bolts, the Retribution launched a barrage of physical projectiles at incredible speeds. The railgun rounds were chunks of depleted uranium accelerated to nearly 10% of the speed of light. They crossed the distance between the ships in milliseconds and struck their targets with the force of nuclear weapons. The first alien cruiser simply disappeared. One moment it was there, the next it was an expanding cloud of metal fragments and atmospheric gases. The second ship lasted slightly longer, its energy shields flaring brightly before the kinetic projectile punched through them and tore the vessel in half. The third ship tried to maneuver out of the way, but human targeting computers had calculated its movement patterns before it even began to turn. The railgun round caught it amidships, and the entire vessel folded in on itself before exploding. In less than 30 seconds, 3 alien warships had been completely destroyed. "Return fire," HFY shouted. "All ships, concentrate your attacks on their weapon systems." The remaining alien vessels opened fire again, but this time they aimed for specific targets on the human ship. Energy beams and missiles struck the Retribution's weapon ports and shield generators. Once again, the human ship emerged unharmed. The adaptive shielding had learned from the previous attack and adjusted its frequencies to provide even better protection. Captain Chen watched the tactical display as enemy ships moved to surround her vessel. "Launch interceptors," she ordered calmly. The sides of the Retribution opened like flower petals, revealing launch bays filled with sleek fighter craft. But these were not piloted by living beings. Each interceptor was controlled by an advanced AI that could process information and react faster than any biological creature. 200 drone fighters poured out of the human battlecruiser and immediately engaged the alien fleet. The enemy pilots found themselves fighting opponents that could pull impossible maneuvers and react to threats before they were even fully formed. Alien fighter craft that had dominated battlefields for centuries were outmatched in seconds. The human drones moved like schools of fish, coordinating their attacks with perfect precision while avoiding enemy fire with inhuman reflexes. Meanwhile, the Retribution continued its steady advance through the alien formation. Its particle cannons fired continuously, each shot carefully aimed to disable rather than destroy. Captain Chen wanted prisoners who could provide information about the human hostages. Admiral Krexhai watched in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. Ships that had served the hegemony for decades were being systematically eliminated by a single human vessel. His tactical officers were shouting reports that made no sense. "Sir, the human ship is using projectile weapons that ignore our energy shields. Admiral, their fighters are controlled by artificial intelligence. Our pilots can't match their reaction times. The human vessel is not following any known tactical doctrine. They're ignoring our formation completely." Krexhai realized with growing terror that everything the hegemony knew about warfare was useless against the humans. Their tactics, their weapons, their entire military philosophy had been designed to fight other alien species who followed the same basic rules of combat. Humans apparently followed different rules entirely. The Retribution's quantum torpedoes finished off a group of destroyers that had tried to attack from behind. The weapons created small black holes that consumed the enemy ships before evaporating harmlessly in space. Captain Zorthok, commanding one of the few remaining alien cruisers, opened a communication channel to Admiral Krexhai. "Sir, we're losing everything. How is this possible? They're just one ship." Before Krexhai could answer, the human battlecruiser turned its attention to Zorthak's vessel. A single railgun round punched through the ship's shields, engines, and weapon systems without detonating. The alien cruiser was left helpless but intact. In 6 minutes of combat, the proud hegemony fleet had been reduced to less than 20 functional ships. The remainder were either destroyed completely or disabled, and drifting helplessly through the asteroid field. Admiral Krexhai's flagship was one of the few vessels still capable of fighting, but its shields were failing, and several weapon systems had been destroyed by precise human fire. "Signal all remaining ships," Krexhai ordered quietly. "Cease fire and withdraw to minimum safe distance." His communication officer looked confused. "Sir, are we surrendering?" Krexhai stared at the human battlecruiser on his main screen. The massive vessel had not suffered even minor damage, despite facing the entire hegemony fleet. Its weapon systems were still fully operational, and its fighter craft continued to patrol the battlefield. "Open a channel to the human ship," he said finally. Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen. She looked exactly as Krexhai had expected a human to look. Small, soft, and fragile compared to most galactic species, but her eyes held something that chilled the alien admiral to his core. "What are you?" Krexhai asked in a whisper. Chen's expression did not change. "We're the species you should never have underestimated, Admiral." "Now, where are my people?" Admiral Krexhai's hands shook as he transmitted the location of the human prisoners to Captain Chen. The pirate base was hidden deep within the asteroid field, protected by the remaining ships of the Crimson Nebula fleet. What had seemed like an impregnable fortress an hour ago now felt like a death trap. "The pirates have approximately 30 ships guarding the installation," Krexhai reported. "Your people are being held in the main facility's detention center." Captain Chen studied the tactical information on her screen. The pirate base was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, with only a few entrance points large enough for ships to pass through. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a position would require a massive fleet and result in heavy casualties. These were not normal circumstances. "Thank you for your cooperation, Admiral," Chen said. "I suggest you withdraw your remaining ships to a safe distance. What happens next is going to be unpleasant." The UES Retribution moved deeper into the asteroid field. its massive bulk navigating between the floating rocks with surprising grace. The ship's advanced sensors mapped every piece of debris and calculated safe passages through the dense field. Aboard the pirate base, Razorclaw watched the approaching human vessel with growing panic. He had witnessed the destruction of the hegemony fleet from his hidden observation posts. Seeing 47 military ships eliminated in 6 minutes had convinced him that fighting the humans was suicide. "Open all communication channels," Razorclaw ordered his subordinates. "Send a surrender message to the human ship immediately." But Captain Chen was no longer interested in negotiations. The time for mercy had passed when the pirates attacked the colony ship New Horizon. Her response to the surrender offer was brief and final. "You have 5 minutes to release all human prisoners and evacuate the base. Anyone still inside after that time will not survive." Razorclaw stared at the communication screen in disbelief. 5 minutes? We have 500 prisoners scattered throughout the facility. It's impossible to evacuate everyone in 5 minutes. The human captain's voice came back one final time. "Then I suggest you work quickly." Chaos erupted throughout the pirate base as alien crews rushed to free the human captives. The detention center held men, women, and children who had been imprisoned for 3 months. Many were weak from poor treatment. But they were alive. Dr. Sarah Martinez, one of the captured colonists, helped organize the evacuation. She had been a trauma surgeon before the attack and had been trying to keep the other prisoners alive and healthy during their captivity. "Stay together," she told the other humans as pirate guards hurried them toward the docking bays. "Don't trust them, but don't resist either. Help is coming." 5 minutes passed with agonizing slowness. The pirates managed to evacuate most of their own crew and about half of the human prisoners before time ran out. The remaining humans were still trapped in the lower levels of the facility. Captain Chen studied the sensor readings from the pirate base. Her targeting computers had identified the exact location of every human life sign inside the asteroid. What she planned to do next would have been impossible with conventional weapons. "Fire quantum torpedoes, surgical pattern 7, she ordered. The Retribution launched 12 quantum torpedoes, each programmed with precise targeting data. The weapons struck the asteroid base with incredible accuracy, cutting through rock and metal like a surgeon's scalpel. Entire sections of the pirate facility simply ceased to exist, as the weapons created microscopic black holes that consumed everything in their path. But the detention areas where humans were held remained completely untouched. Within minutes, the asteroid had been carved open like a piece of fruit. The human prisoners found themselves looking up at open space through holes in the asteroid's surface, with the massive bulk of the UES Retribution floating overhead. Human Marines in powered armor descended through the openings and began coordinating the rescue operation. The Marines moved with military precision, but their faces showed relief and anger in equal measure as they found the survivors. "This is Marine Sergeant Williams," came the radio report to Captain Chen. "We found 483 surviving prisoners. 17 are dead from injuries and neglect. All survivors are being evacuated to the medical bay." Chen closed her eyes for a moment. 17 more deaths that could have been prevented if she had arrived sooner. She added those numbers to the count of 2,000 colonists killed in the original attack. As the rescue operation continued, Commander Rodriguez approached with intelligence reports gathered from captured pirate data systems. "Captain, you need to see this," Rodriguez said grimly. "The Crimson Nebula has been operating for over 20 years. They've attacked dozens of colony ships from newly contacted species. The galactic authorities knew about it and did nothing." Chen read through the files on his tablet. The pattern was clear and sickening. Pirates would target ships from species that had recently joined galactic civilization. They would kill most of the passengers and sell the survivors as slaves to alien black markets. The hegemony and other major powers knew about these attacks but considered them acceptable losses. New species needed to learn their place in the galactic order. And if some of them died in the process, that was simply the cost of civilization. "How many species?" Chen asked quietly. "At least 15 different civilizations over the past 2 decades. Hundreds of thousands of people killed or enslaved, all dismissed as growing pains by the galactic authorities." Chen looked out at the stars through the bridge's main viewing screen. Somewhere out there, other species were probably suffering the same fate that had befallen the New Horizon colonists. Other families were being torn apart by predators who operated with the tacit approval of galactic civilization. Rodriguez, send a message to Earth Command. Priority, Alpha. What should it say, Captain? Chen was quiet for a long moment, thinking about her daughter Emma and the grandchildren she would never meet. She thought about the 483 survivors being treated in her ship's medical bay, and the 17 who had died before she could reach them. Tell them that the Kepler sector is now under human protection. Any further attacks on defenseless ships will be considered acts of war against Earth. Rodriguez looked surprised. Captain, we don't have the authority to make that kind of declaration. That's a decision for the government. The government is 3 weeks away by faster-than-light communication, Chen replied. These people don't have 3 weeks. She turned to face her bridge crew. Every person there had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not return home. They had families and friends on Earth, but they had chosen to risk everything to save strangers. Broadcast this message on all galactic communication frequencies, Chen ordered. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Retribution. As of today, the human government is extending protection to all developing civilizations in this region of space. Any attacks on civilian ships will result in immediate military response. She paused and looked directly into the camera. We have tried following galactic law. We have tried working within the system. The system has failed to protect innocent people. Therefore, Earth will create its own system. The message was transmitted across dozens of star systems instantly. On hundreds of worlds, alien governments received humanity's declaration with shock and disbelief. Admiral Krexhai, still floating in his damaged flagship, watched the transmission with growing understanding. The humans weren't just rescuing their own people, they were challenging the entire foundation of galactic civilization. For 1,000 years, the major powers had maintained order through a careful balance of controlled conflict. Weaker species were allowed to suffer, so that stronger ones could maintain stability. It was a system that had worked for centuries. The humans had just announced their intention to tear that system down. As word spread throughout the galaxy, emergency sessions were called in every major government. For the first time in centuries, the established powers faced a species that refused to accept their place in the galactic hierarchy. Dr. Martinez, now safely aboard the Retribution's medical bay, looked out through a porthole at the destroyed pirate base. She had lost 3 months of her life to those criminals, but she had gained something else. The knowledge that her species would never allow such suffering to go unanswered again. The rescue was complete, but the real war was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Field, the galaxy was a very different place. In the Zephyrian capital city, Ambassador Veltar stood before the ruling council, presenting his recommendation for a formal alliance with Earth. The humans have kept their word, Veltar reported to the assembled leaders. Piracy in the outer sectors has dropped to nearly zero. 3 species that were being systematically enslaved are now free to develop their own civilizations. The Zephyrian Prime Minister, an elderly being whose blue skin had faded to silver with age, studied the reports carefully. What about their military capabilities? Are the rumors true? I'm afraid so, Prime Minister. The UES Retribution was not their most powerful ship. It was a standard patrol vessel. Intelligence reports indicate that Earth has 12 battlecruisers of similar design, with more under construction. Gasps echoed through the council chamber. If the ship that had destroyed an entire hegemony fleet was considered standard, what did that say about humanity's true military strength? On the other side of the galaxy, the hegemony high command was reaching the same conclusion. Fleet Admiral Krexhai, now recovered from his injuries, stood before the Supreme War Council presenting his intelligence assessment. Earth's orbital defenses include over 300 weapons platforms, each capable of destroying a cruiser-class vessel, Krexhai reported. Their home system is protected by the largest military fleet we have ever encountered. Supreme General Mordak, the highest-ranking military officer in hegemony space, examined the tactical data with growing alarm. How did we miss this? How did a primitive species develop such advanced technology? They're not primitive, Krexhai replied grimly. That was our mistake. Humans have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history. They've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. When they finally achieved peace on their own world, they turned all that knowledge toward defending themselves against external threats. General Mordock stood up and paced around the war room. What do our analysts say about their weaknesses? They don't seem to have any obvious military weaknesses. Their technology is a hybrid of captured alien designs, improved by human engineering. Their tactics are unlike anything we've encountered. They don't fight for territory or resources. They fight to completely eliminate threats. The hegemony leadership had faced a choice after Kepler Field: accept the new reality or attempt to restore the old order through force. They had chosen force. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the Space Defense Command Center watching tactical displays that showed hegemony fleet movements. She had been promoted after her success at Kepler Field and now commanded Earth's entire frontier defense force. Status report, Chen requested from her staff. The hegemony Grand Fleet is 3 days out from the Sol system, reported Captain Martinez, her new intelligence officer. 247 ships, including dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, and support vessels. Chen studied the numbers without concern. And our defensive position? All orbital platforms are online and fully armed. The home fleet consists of 12 battlecruisers and 58 support vessels. The new quantum minefield has been deployed at the system's edge. For any other species, facing odds of nearly 4-1 would have meant certain defeat. For humanity, it was simply another day at the office. The communication systems crackled to life as signals arrived from across human space. The colonies that had been established over the past 50 years were all reporting the same thing. Alien species were asking for Earth's protection. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Commander Kim, "we're receiving requests for defensive alliances from 18 different species. They're all offering technology transfers and trade agreements in exchange for protection from the hegemony." Chen nodded thoughtfully. This was exactly what Earth's government had hoped would happen. By demonstrating their military superiority, humanity had become the preferred alternative to hegemony rule. 3 days later, the hegemony Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Supreme General Mordock commanded the massive force from his flagship, a dreadnought called the Eternal Dominion. What he found waiting for him was beyond his worst nightmares. Earth's orbital defenses formed a sphere around the planet that extended billions of kilometers into space. Weapons platforms the size of small cities hung in formation, their weapons trained on the approaching fleet. The quantum minefield created a barrier that would destroy any ship attempting to pass through it, without proper authorization codes. But most intimidating of all was the human fleet itself. 12 battlecruisers hung in perfect formation, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in the hegemony navy. Surrounding them were dozens of smaller ships, all broadcasting targeting data that showed they had locked onto specific hegemony vessels. "Open communications with the human fleet," Mordock ordered reluctantly. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen of the Eternal Dominion. She looked exactly as Mordock had expected, small and fragile compared to his own species. But her eyes held the same cold determination that Admiral Krexhai had described. "General Mordock," Chen said without preamble, "you have 2 choices. Withdraw your fleet immediately and agree to respect the sovereignty of all species under Earth's protection, or face the consequences of declaring war on humanity." Mordock studied the tactical displays around his command center. His fleet was powerful enough to conquer most civilizations in the galaxy. Against the defenses he was seeing, they would be slaughtered. "What are your terms?" he asked quietly. "Simple," Chen replied. "The galactic accords that are being negotiated on neutral ground will guarantee equal representation for all species, regardless of their technological development. Predatory behavior against civilian populations will be treated as acts of war. All species will have the right to defend themselves and request assistance from others. And if we refuse?" Chen's expression didn't change. But something in her voice made every alien on Mordock's bridge step backward. "Then you'll discover what happens when humanity goes to war with the intention of winning permanently," The communication ended, leaving the hegemony fleet alone with their thoughts. For several hours, General Mordak weighed his options. He could attack, and almost certainly lose his entire fleet. He could withdraw and accept the end of hegemony dominance, or he could attempt to negotiate better terms. The decision was made for him when his communication officer reported incoming signals from across hegemony space. Dozens of member species were announcing their intention to join the new Galactic Accords. The empire that had dominated the galaxy for centuries was crumbling as species chose human protection over hegemony rule. "Signal the fleet," Mordak ordered finally. "We're withdrawing to neutral space." 2 years later, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the UES Retribution as it patrolled the Kepler sector. The space around her was busy with civilian traffic. Ships from dozens of species traveling freely under human protection. The Galactic Accords had been signed by over 90% of known civilizations. The old system of strong species dominating weak ones had been replaced by a new order where all civilizations had equal rights and representation. Piracy had virtually disappeared from human-protected space. The few criminal organizations that still operated quickly discovered that attacking civilian ships resulted in swift and overwhelming retaliation. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding his own ship, approached Chen with the daily intelligence reports. "Admiral, the hegemony has requested permission to establish a trade station in Sector 7. They're offering technology transfers and peaceful cooperation." Chen smiled slightly, approved. "But make sure they understand the rules. Any aggressive action toward civilian vessels will be met with immediate response." She looked out at the stars, thinking about her daughter Emma and all the other innocent people who had died because the galaxy's previous guardians had failed to protect them. The aliens had asked what humans were. The answer was simple. They were the species that refused to let evil go unpunished. They were the people who believed that innocent lives were worth fighting for. They were humanity, and that was enough. In the depths of space, alien children played safely on ships traveling between the stars, protected by vessels bearing the symbols of Earth. Their parents told them stories about the time when such journeys were dangerous, when pirates ruled the space lanes and the strong preyed upon the weak. Those days were over. Humanity had made sure of it. The age of human guardianship had begun, and the galaxy was finally safe.